everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep on something pretty interesting. Well, maybe unsettling is a better word. It's about malicious AI models and how they could be hiding on platforms like Hugging Face. Hugging Face, right? It's kind of like the go-to place for anyone into AI. They've got over 1 million models there. It's made AI accessible to, like, anyone, which is amazing. But anything that powerful, well, there's got to be a catch, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's like anything else, I guess. More power means more ways to misuse it.
Exactly. So what if some of these models, the very foundation of AI, what if some of them are actually designed to do harm? That's what we're looking at today.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So
I think it's interesting because people always focus on the data part of AI, like the massive amounts of data used to train these models.
right, makes sense.
But people forget that at their core, AI models are just code. And code can be vulnerable,
Oh, yeah,
like any other code.
for sure.
And that's exactly what researchers at Hidden Layer and Wiz found.
So, okay, hold on. Are you saying it's not just about the data the AI model is trained on? It's about the actual code itself being manipulated?
That's exactly it. Think of it this way. You go to Hugging Face and download some model, maybe for facial recognition or to generate some text. It seems harmless, right?
Right.
But hidden in that code, there could be instructions to steal your data or to get around security, maybe even take control of your systems.
Whoa, okay. That's a little creepy.
Yeah, a little bit.
So how does that even happen? Does someone just sneak in some bad code before they upload it?
Well, that's one way, yeah. There's a format called Pickle that's pretty popular
Okay.
for sharing AI models,
Mm-hmm.
and it's susceptible to code injection.
Cool.
Attackers can literally just insert bad instructions right into the model's code.
So it's like disguised or something?
Yeah, like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Got it. But didn't Hugging Face try to fix that? I thought they made a new format called Safe and Source that was supposed to be more secure.
Oh, they did. And Safety and Service is definitely a step in the right direction. But security is always a cat and mouse game, Hugging Face set up a conversion service to help people switch over to the new format.
Makes sense.
And they had this bot called SF Convert Bot, I think,
Okay.
to manage the conversions.
Uh-huh.
But then Hidden Layer discovered that even that process was vulnerable.
Oh, wow. So even the fix was hackable.
Basically, yeah. It shows how hard it is to secure this stuff.
Definitely. Things change so fast.
Right. And Hidden Layer didn't just find the vulnerability. They actually built an exploit.
Wow.
They were able to bypass security checks, get into the conversion bot,
Yeah.
and even get its token.
So they could, control it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they could have pushed bad models out to people under the guise of Hugging Face.
Yeah, they could have.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty big deal.
It is. And it wasn't just theoretical. They found models from big companies like Google and Microsoft, some with millions of downloads that had been processed by this bot.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a few random cases. This could affect some of the most used AI models out there. And it's not just Hugging Face either, right?
Nope. Wiz Research found something similar on Replicate.
Okay, another AI platform.
Uh-huh. They were able to show cross-tenant data access,
Meaning
meaning they could have potentially accessed or even changed other users' models and data.
seriously, so it's like a system-wide issue. This is starting to sound like a real cybersecurity nightmare.
Yeah.
But before we totally freak out, can we talk about what's being done to fix it?
Yeah.
What are people doing to protect users and make these platforms safer?
Sure. Well, it's not all bad news. Both Hugging Face and Replicate have been really good about responding to these findings. They've worked with the researchers, and they've taken steps to fix things.
Okay, well, that's good. What kind of steps are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, they've patched the vulnerabilities in the conversion service
Yeah.
and added more security measures.
Okay.
But more importantly, this whole thing has started a conversation about security in the AI ecosystem as a whole.
So it's like a wake-up call
Exactly.
for the whole industry.
Right. Yeah, it's forced everyone to think about how to build a more secure foundation for AI.
Okay, so what are some of the things they're doing?
Well, one key area is sandboxing.
Sandboxing, like a little playground to test things out safely.
That's the idea.
Hmm.
By isolating AI models in secure sandboxes, platforms can limit the damage a bad model can do,
Okay.
like a safety net.
Right, that makes sense. Contain the threat before it spreads. But we also need to be able to find these bad models in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where tools like Protect AI Scanner come in.
Okay.
They've partnered with Hugging Face to integrate the scanner directly into the platform.
So people can check for bad code before they even download anything.
Exactly.
Like a security guard.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. But what about models that aren't necessarily malicious, but could still be used for bad things? How do we deal with that?
That's a really important point. It gets into the ethics of AI.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other thing.
Or even a harmless-looking model,
Yeah.
if it's used irresponsibly, could have bad consequences.
Oh, right.
Like, imagine a facial recognition model trained on biased data. It could perpetuate societal biases.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just about the code itself.
It's about how these models are made, trained, and used.
Exactly.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It shows how we need a multifaceted approach to AI security.
Okay.
It's not just about technical solutions. We need education, awareness, ethical considerations.
Right.
Developers need to adopt secure coding practices. Researchers need to think about potential biases in their data. And users need to be careful about the models they choose.
So we all have a part to play.
Exactly.
Like with cybersecurity in general, don't click bad links and keep your software up to date.
Right.
Same idea, but for AI.
Yeah, be cautious about where you get your models from, understand the risks, and be mindful of how you're using these powerful tools.
Okay, that makes sense. But it can be hard to keep up with everything. AI is changing so fast.
It is.
Where can people go for reliable information?
There's some great resources out there. The blogs from security companies like HiddenLayer and Wiz are fantastic. They explain complex stuff in a way that's easy to understand.
Great, and we'll be sure to include links to those in the show notes. So we've talked about the technical side of AI security, but what about the human element? How do our actions affect all of this?
That's a key factor.
Yeah.
Like with any technology. Human error can create vulnerabilities.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like weak passwords or falling for phishing scams. Those can give attackers an easy way in.
So those basic cybersecurity things we always hear about, they still matter in the world of AI.
More than ever.
Okay.
And it's not just about individuals. Organizations need to have strong security policies, train their employees on AI security, and have good monitoring and incident response capabilities.
It sounds like we need a whole new type of cybersecurity professional.
We do. This is a growing field, huge demand for talent.
So if you're interested in cybersecurity, AI security is a hot area.
Definitely.
It's an exciting field.
And it's only going to become more important.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. The threats, the
Yeah.
vulnerabilities, the solutions, and the need for a multifaceted approach to AI security. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about education and awareness. What can our listeners do right now to be more secure when using AI models?
That's a great question. First of all, be mindful of where you're getting your models from. Stick to reputable platforms like Hugging Face and Replicate.
Okay.
And look for verification badges. Make sure you're getting the real deal.
Like being careful about where you download apps.
Exactly.
Don't download from just any random website.
Right.
Be wary of models from unknown sources or ones with crazy high download numbers.
Yeah, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay, that's a good starting point. What else?
If you're comfortable with the technical stuff, you can use tools like Protect AI Scanner to check for malicious code,
Okay.
even if you don't understand all the details. Running a scan can give you extra protection.
So it's a good idea to add a security check to your AI workflow. And what about staying up to date on all this? Where can people learn more about AI security?
Those blogs I mentioned earlier are a good place to start. HiddenLayer and Wiz, they publish articles about their research and give practical advice.
And we'll link to those in the show notes.
Great.
The more we know, the better we can protect ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, it seems like we're at a turning point. We're starting to see how important AI security is, and we're taking steps to address it. But it's clear that this is an ongoing challenge. It's going to require us to be vigilant and keep innovating.
Definitely.
It feels like we're standing at the edge of this incredible AI frontier, but there's a bit of a fog ahead. How do we make sure we're not walking into a security minefield as we go deeper into this exciting new territory?
I like that analogy. I think it's a great way to put it. We all want to explore what AI can do, but we have to be careful and aware.
Okay.
It's like going on an expedition. You wouldn't just wander around without a map or a compass.
So what's the AI equivalent of a map and compass? What can help guide us toward a more secure future?
I think one key thing is transparency. We need to be able to see how AI models are developed, how they're trained, and how they're used.
So like an ingredient list.
Exactly.
You want to know what's in something before you use it. Makes sense.
We need to understand where these models come from, the data they were trained on, and any potential biases they might have.
Okay, but how do we get that level of transparency? AI is often secretive.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a balance between protecting intellectual property and making sure the public can trust AI.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But I think we can do both.
How?
Well, for example, we can encourage open source standards for AI development
Okay.
that would allow more people to look at the code and work together.
More eyes on the code, so to speak.
Exactly.
What about the government? Do they have a role to play in all of this?
Absolutely. Governments around the world are starting to figure out what AI means,
Right.
and cybersecurity has to be a part of that conversation.
Mhm.
They need to establish clear guidelines for AI security, promote responsible AI development, and invest in research to stay ahead of the threats.
So it's not just about individual companies or organizations. It's about creating a bigger framework for AI governance and security.
Exactly. It's about creating rules and norms to make sure AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
Like traffic laws.
Exactly.
We need rules of the road to keep everyone safe.
Right.
And what about education? How can we help people understand the risks of AI and make informed choices?
That's crucial.
Yeah.
We need to demystify AI.
Make it easier to understand.
Yes, and make it accessible to everyone.
Not just the tech expert.
Right.
Okay.
We need to teach people about the benefits and risks of AI, empower them to ask questions, and help them develop a healthy skepticism about the technology.
Just like we want people to be informed consumers of AI, just like we want them to be critical thinkers about other types of information.
Exactly.
We need to give people the tools and knowledge to navigate this AI-driven world safely and responsibly.
I agree.
Well, I think this deep dive has given our listeners a lot to think about. We've explored the potential dangers of AI, the steps being taken to protect us, and the importance of working together to build a more secure AI future.
It has been a fascinating conversation. I hope it encourages people to talk more about this and take action.
Me too.
The choices we make about AI security today will have a huge impact on the world tomorrow.
Very true.
We need to choose wisely.
Wise words. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into AI security. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the risks and solutions, the better prepared we'll be for this exciting new era of AI. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.
Yeah, they've been great, actually. Both Hugging Face and Replicate have been really responsive. They work closely with the researchers, and they've taken action to fix the vulnerabilities.
Okay, that's good to hear. What kind of actions are we talking about?
Well, first, they patched the specific vulnerabilities that were found in the conversion service,
Right.
and they've implemented additional security measures.
Makes sense.
But I think even more important is that this has sparked a bigger conversation.
Oh, yeah.
About what? About the need for better security across the entire AI ecosystem.
So it's kind of like a wake-up call.
Yeah,
The
well,
whole industry.
it's forced everyone to step back and think
Okay.
about how we can build a more secure foundation for AI, for the future of AI.
So it's like, okay, we need to fix these specific problems, but we also need to think bigger about how to prevent these kinds of things from happening again.
Exactly.
So what are some of the things people are doing to make things more secure?
Well, one key area is sandboxing.
Sandboxing, like
Mhm.
I don't know, a virtual playground where you can test things out safely?
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
The idea is to isolate AI models
Uh-huh.
in these secure sandboxes
Okay.
so that if something goes wrong, the damage is limited.
Makes sense, like a safety net. But we also need a way to find these bad models in the first place, right?
Well-
Before they even get into the sandbox.
Absolutely. And that's where tools like Protect AI Scanner come in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So Protect AI has partnered with Hugging Face
Mm-hmm.
to integrate this scanner into the platform.
Okay.
So now users can actually check for malicious code.
Before they download a model.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's like having a security guard at the door.
Right, checking everyone's ID before they come in.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So it's a proactive approach instead of just reacting after something bad happens.
Exactly.
I like that. But what about models that might not be overtly malicious, but could still be used for harmful purposes?
That's a great point.
Like, I don't know, what if a model is used to spread misinformation or to discriminate against certain groups of people?
That's a real concern.
Yeah.
And it gets into the broader ethical considerations surrounding AI.
Right. It's not just about the code itself. It's about how it's used.
Exactly.
Who's using it.
Even a seemingly benign model if it's used irresponsibly. Could have negative consequences.
So it's like we need to think about the potential impact of these models
Yeah,
before we just release them into the wild,
exactly. It's like any new technology.
Right.
We need to consider the potential risks.
as well as the benefits.
Right.
So how do we do that? How do we ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly?
Well, it's a complex issue, but I think it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to make sure that people understand
Yeah.
how AI works
Right.
and the potential impact it can have, both positive and negative.
So we need to demystify AI a bit. Make
Exactly.
it more accessible to everyone.
Not just the technical experts.
Right.
We need to empower people to ask questions, to be critical thinkers,
Yeah.
and to demand transparency from the companies developing these technologies.
Okay, so education is key. What else can we do?
Well, I think we also need to develop better tools and frameworks
Okay.
for assessing the ethical implications of AI.
Like-
Well, for example, we could develop guidelines for data privacy and security.
Uh-huh.
We could create standards for bias detection and mitigation,
Right.
and we could establish mechanisms for accountability and oversight.
So it's like we need to build safeguards into the system to make sure that AI is used for good.
And not for harm.
And that's a challenge.
It is.
But it's a challenge we need to address.
If we want to realize the full potential of AI.
While also mitigating the risks.
Right.
It's a balancing act.
It is.
But I think it's a balancing act we can achieve if we work together.
I agree.
So what can our listeners do to help ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to stay informed.
Okay.
Read articles, listen to podcasts,
Find this one. Exactly.
attend conferences.
Learn as much as you can about AI
Uh-huh.
and the ethical considerations surrounding it.
Okay.
The more you know
The better equipped you'll be
to make informed decisions.
about the use of AI and to advocate for responsible AI development.
Right. So it's about empowering ourselves
Exactly.
with knowledge.
And using that knowledge to make a difference.
I like that. Okay, so staying informed is crucial. What else can we do?
Well, another important thing is to support organizations that are working to promote ethical AI.
Like,
There are a number of nonprofits and advocacy groups
okay.
that are focused on this issue. You can donate to them,
Okay.
volunteer your time,
Right.
or simply spread the word about their work.
So it's about using our voices and our resources.
To support the people who are fighting for a more ethical AI future.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
It is.
Because ultimately, the future of AI is up to us
We have the power to shape it,
into something that benefits everyone.
not just a select few.
Okay, so we need to stay informed. We need to support ethical AI organizations. And we need to use our voices to advocate for change.
Exactly.
Those are some powerful takeaways.
I hope so.
I think our listeners will appreciate it.
I hope they find it useful.
Me too. Yeah, it does feel like we're on the edge of something amazing with AI. But it's kind of foggy. Like, we don't know what's out there.
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know yet.
Exactly. So how do we make sure we're not walking into a danger zone as we explore this new AI world?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things is transparency.
Okay, transparency. What do you mean by that?
We need to be able to see what's going on with AI development. We need to know how these models are being built,
Okay.
how they're being trained,
Right.
and how they're being used.
So it's like we need more visibility into the whole process.
Exactly.
But isn't that difficult? I mean, a lot of AI development is shrouded in secrecy.
That's true.
Companies want to protect their intellectual property.
Right.
So how do we balance that with the need for transparency?
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think there are ways to do it.
Like what?
Well, one idea is to encourage the use of open source standards.
For AI development. So that more people can look at the code and see how things work.
Exactly.
That makes sense. What about the government? Do they have a role to play in all of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Governments around the world are starting to realize that AI is going to have a major impact on society.
Right.
And they're starting to develop regulations and policies.
To govern its use.
Exactly.
So what should those regulations and policies focus on?
I think one of the most important things is security.
Okay.
We need to make sure that AI systems are secure.
To prevent them from being hacked or misused.
Right.
What else?
I think we also need to think about privacy.
Uh-huh.
AI systems collect and process a lot of data about people.
Yeah. That's true.
So we need to make sure that that data is being handled responsibly.
Okay, so security and privacy are key.
Yeah.
What about bias? We talked about that earlier.
Right.
How can we make sure that AI systems are fair and unbiased?
That's a tough one
Yeah.
because bias can creep into AI systems in a lot of different ways. Well, it can start with the data that's used to train the system
Mm.
if the data is biased.
Then the system will be biased too.
Exactly.
So we need to make sure that the data is representative of the population.
Right.
And that it doesn't reflect any existing societal biases.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's data bias.
What else?
What other kinds of bias are there?
Well, there's also algorithmic bias.
Okay, what's that?
That's where the algorithm itself is designed in a way
Uh-huh.
that produces biased results.
Mm. So even if the data is unbiased.
The system can still be biased if the algorithm is flawed.
Wow, that's tricky.
It is.
So how do we address algorithmic bias?
Well, it's important to have diverse teams of people
Okay.
working on AI development.
People with different backgrounds, different perspectives.
Exactly.
Because if you only have one type of person working on a system.
It's more likely to reflect their biases.
Right, that makes sense. So diversity is key
Yeah.
to mitigating bias. What about transparency? We talked about that earlier too. How can we make sure that AI systems are transparent so that people can understand how they work and hold them accountable?
Well, one way is to require companies to disclose
Uh-huh.
information about their AI systems.
Like what kind of information?
Well, they could disclose the data that was used to train the system,
Okay.
the algorithm that's being used,
Right.
and the potential biases that the system might have.
So it's like giving people a peek under the hood so they can see how the system works.
And make informed decisions about whether or not to use it.
I like that. So transparency is important.
Yeah.
What else? What other things should we be thinking about when it comes to AI ethics and governance?
Well, I think it's also important to think about the impact of AI on jobs.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
A lot of people are worried that AI is going to automate away their jobs.
And that's a valid concern.
It is.
So what can we do about it?
Well, I think we need to start thinking about ways to retrain people
Okay.
for the jobs of the future.
Jobs that will be created by AI. And we also need to think about social safety nets
Yeah.
for people who are displaced by AI.
Yeah, that's important too.
So it's not just about developing the technology, it's about thinking about the social and economic implications as well.
Exactly.
And making sure that everyone benefits from AI, not just a select few.
Right.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about the potential benefits of AI and the potential risks.
Uh-huh.
We've talked about the importance of security, privacy, fairness, transparency, and accountability.
Right.
We've talked about the impact of AI on jobs and the need for retraining and social safety nets.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation.
It has, and I think it's clear that AI is a powerful technology
It is.
with the potential to transform our world in both positive and negative ways. So it's up to us to make sure that AI is used for good.
And not for harm.
And that's a responsibility that we all share.
I agree.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you again for joining us today and for sharing your insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. I hope you found it informative and thought-provoking, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another deep dive into the fascinating and ever-evolving world of technology. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged.